Hare Krishna. Om Agnanatimrantasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakranamilitam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna devotees. Good morning everyone. Today I will be reading from the book The Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, chapter 22. Further talks with Prakashananda. Sripad Shankaracharya has unceremoniously obscured the Krishna consciousness described in the Purusha Vedanta Sutra by manufacturing an indirect interpretation and giving up the direct interpretation. But unless we take all statements of Vedanta Sutra as self-evident, there is no need to study Vedanta Sutra. To interpret the verses of Vedanta Sutra according to one's own whimsy is the greatest disservice to self-evident Vedas. So far as Omkara Pranava is concerned, he is considered the sound incarnation of Supreme Person of Godhead. As such, Omkara is the eternal, unlimited, transcendental, supreme, and indestructible. He is the beginning and he is the beginning. He is the beginningless and he is the beginning, middle and end. When one understands the Omkara as such, then he becomes immortal. One should know Omkara as a reflection of Supreme situated everywhere, situated in everyone's heart. Anyone who understands Omkara and Vishnu as one and the same and all pervading never laments the material world, nor does he remain anymore as Sudra. Although Omkara, has no material form, he is unlimitedly expanded and has unlimited form. By understanding the Omkara, one can become free from the duality of the material world and be placed in the absolute knowledge. Therefore, Omkara is the most auspicious representation of the Supreme Lord. Such is the description of the Mandukya Upanishad. One should not foolishly interpret such a description of the Upanishad and say that because the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot appear himself in the material world in his own form, therefore the sound repetition Omkara is here. By such a false interpretation, Omkara comes to be considered as something material and the eulogizing of Omkara is misunderstood as simply an exhibition of his value. Actually, Omkara is as good as other incarnations of Supreme Lord. The Lord has innumerable incarnations, and Omkara is one of them, as an incarnation of his alphabet, of the alphabet. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, amongst the letter I am Omkara. This means that Omkara is non-different from Krishna. That is the right interpretation. The impersonalist, however, gives more importance to the Omkara than to the personality of Godhead, Krishna. In fact, however, any representational incarnation of the Supreme Lord is non-different from him. Such an incarnation or representation is as good spiritually as the Supreme Lord. Omkara is therefore the ultimate representation of all the Vedas. The Vedic mantras or hymns have transcendental value because they are prefixed by the pronoun Omkara. The Vaishnavas, however, interpret Omkara as follows by the letter O. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is indicated by the letter U. Krishna's eternal consort, Srimati Radharani, is indicated by the letter Yam. The eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord, the living entity, is indicated. Shankara has not given so much importance to the Omkara. It is found, however, in the Vedas and in the Ramayana and in the Puranas and in the Mahabharata, from beginning to the end and in the middle everywhere. Thus, the glories of Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are declared. Thus, Lord Chaitanya condemned the attempt at indirect interpretation of the Vedanta Sutra, and the sannyasis present were all struck with wonder by his explanation. After hearing the direct interpretation of the Vedanta Sutra from Lord Chaitanya, one of the sannyasis in the meeting immediately declared, O Sripad Chaitanya, what you have explained by condemning the direct interpretation of Omkara is not at all a useless argument. Only the fortunate person can accept your interpretation as the right one. Actually, even one of us now knows that the interpretation given by Shankara are all artificial and imaginary. But because we belong to the section, therefore we took it for granted to be the right interpretation. We shall be very glad to hear you if you explain further the Vedanta Sutra by direct interpretation. After this, Lord Chaitanya explained each and every verse of the Vedanta by direct interpretation. He thus explained the word Brahman. Brahman means the greatest, and direct interpretation of the greatest is the supreme personality of Godhead. Greatest means full of six opulences. The supreme personality of Godhead is the reservoir of all wealth, all fame, all strength, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. When Lord Krishna was present personally on the earth, he exhibited these six opulences in full. Nobody was richer than Lord Krishna. Nobody was more learned than Krishna. Nobody was more beautiful than Krishna. Nobody was stronger than Krishna. Nobody was more famous than Krishna. And nobody was more renowned than Krishna. Therefore, the supreme personality of Krishna is the supreme Brahman. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter where Arjuna thus addresses him. You are Param Brahman, the supreme Brahman. Therefore, Brahman means the greatest, and greatest means the supreme person of Godhead, Krishna. He is the shelter of the absolute truth, Paratattva, because he is Param Brahman. But at the same time, in all his opulences and expressions of wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, there is nothing material. Everything spiritual and transcendental in all the Vedic verses and hymns indicates the supreme person of Godhead, Krishna. Wherever, therefore, the word Brahman appears in the Vedas, it should be understood to indicate Krishna, the supreme person of Godhead. The intelligent person at once replaces the name Krishna wherever there is the word Brahman. The supreme person of Godhead is transcendental to the material modes of nature, but he is fully qualified with transcendental qualities. To accept the supreme as impersonal is to deny the manifestation of spiritual energy. When the supreme personality of Godhead, Brahman, is full with spiritual energies and somebody simply accepts his impersonal exhibition of spiritual energy, then he does not accept the absolute truth in full. To accept it in full means to accept the spiritual variegatedness also, which is transcendental to the material modes of nature. Therefore, failing to indicate the Supreme Personality, the Lord impersonates conception is incomplete. The approved method of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the path of devotion service, as is confirmed in every Vedic scripture. The devotion service of the Lord begins by hearing about Him. There are nine different methods in devotion service, of which hearing is the basic one. Hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, all these are the process of attaining the highest perfection of understanding, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This process of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also called Abhidheya, or practice of devotional service within our conditional life. In practice, it is also experienced that anyone who takes to Krishna consciousness, does not deviate to another consciousness. This consciousness is the development of love for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and this development of love of Godhead is called the fifth dimensional intense interest of the human being. When one takes into this process of transcendental devotion service of love of transcendental devotion service or love of Godhead, he relishes his relationship with Krishna directly, and by such reciprocation in relishing transcendental dealings with Krishna, Krishna becomes gradually a person associate of the devotee. The devotee eternally enjoys blissful life. Therefore, the purport of the Vedanta Sutra is to re-establish the lost relationship of the human being with the Supreme Lord Krishna, to execute devotional service, and ultimately to achieve the highest goal of life, love of Godhead. These three principles of transcendental life are described in Vedanta Sutra and nothing more.
Correct.
Hare Krishna. I stop here, Prabhu. A lot of information definitely has been mentioned in the couple of pages that I read, Prabhu. One thing that what we can see is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu definitely spoke to the sannyasis, some of whom I can say some or many of whom were impersonation, very, very detailed about the Supreme Lord, glorifying his glories and also making sure that the established process, what are in Vedas, are correct and not to deviate their mind concentration, devotion to anything else. Yes, there are still some impersonations to treat Omkara and the Hare Krishna Mahamantra as different, but in this case, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu clearly explained this to the Mayavadi sannyasis, uh, definitely we see that they have experienced the explanation. They have undergone the blissfulness, the beauty of the Omkara and also the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and finally they were able to accept it. Now, and then the only thing where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says is whatever is written in Vedas is absolutely correct. And again, we also see, uh, and he also mentions that how uh, we devote ourselves to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. He also says that we have to give our devotion, follow the Navavida Bhakti, the nine step process which is mentioned in this reading. Definitely, hearing is one of the biggest thing that we have to do to establish our devotional, to establish ourselves and also connect to us to Lord Krishna, who is called Supreme Brahman, as stated by the warrior Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. And then it is clearly explained that even Omkara has a meaning, it has got its importance, and not to make sure that we treat it in a different way.